Hey everyone, I hope you all are having a great day. Yesterday was Rosalie's second birthday, and I was showing a lot of you on my Instagram pictures and just kind of the conditions she was born with and a little bit about her. And I asked if you guys would be interested in seeing a little bit of, or knowing about her birth story. So I figured, hey, why not make a video for my YouTube channel and just tell you guys all about it rather than doing it on like Instagram Live, so that way it's permanently there. So I'm gonna begin. So Rosalie, well, here, let me say it like this. Sorry, blooper. Me and Mario were intentionally trying to get pregnant, and I started taking prenatal vitamins. I started trying to eat healthy. We were going to the gym, and we were doing everything that was good for our bodies to try and get pregnant that first month. And surprisingly, we did get pregnant that first month. Like, it happened unexpectedly, like very quicker than we thought it would be. So I found out about 3 weeks that I was pregnant, and I could tell because I've been pregnant before, so I know how my body feels. And so I went to Walmart and I took a pregnancy test, and I know, real classy, but I took it in the Walmart bathroom, and it popped up like pregnant, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe this. Like, I was just like, my heart sunk to my stomach, and it was just like an amazing feeling. And if you guys have seen my other videos, you know that I have had 2 other babies, and it's an open adoption. So like, this was going to be my first baby for myself, and everything was going to be new for me, and it was just like so exciting. So the first thing I did was, like, I called Mario and I was like, guess what, I got a surprise for you, and I'm gonna tell you. And at the time he was working over at Walmart, and I immediately went to like Babies R Us, which was open at the time out in Texas, and I bought like a little baby, I have it packed away in my boxes for when we move, but like a pregnancy planner tracker thing, like each month, where you write like, oh, I found out I was pregnant this day, and you insert pictures here, and you write in how you feel each trimester. So I bought one of those, and I bought like a pink and blue bow, and I put it on it. And what else did I buy? I took a couple pregnancy tests, and I put them up against the pregnancy agenda thing, and I left it in the bedroom. And so I called up Mario and I told him that, and I was so excited. And this book was so cute. Like, in the front page it shows like a little ultrasound baby, and so when he got off work, I was like, okay, I left the present in your room. And like, oh, I was so nervous at this point. And so I let him go in the room first, and he saw it and he picked it up, and oh my god, like, his face just started glowing. He was so happy. Like, I can't even describe how happy he was. He pretty much was almost crying. And he picked it up, and it was so funny because this was him. He was like, oh my god, is that how big the baby is? And it was just like, that wasn't my ultrasound picture. It was a picture that already comes in the book. And he, oh my god, it was the funniest thing ever. He's like, it's that big already? And I was only 3 weeks pregnant, so it definitely wasn't that big. But so anyways, he was so happy. He hugged me, and we were just like so grateful because we were praying that that would happen. And we were just, I don't know, we were very blessed. So you know, time went on. At about 6 weeks pregnant, I ended up going to the hospital for having a lot of bad cramps, and they ended up doing an ultrasound to confirm that the pregnancy was there. Oh, and I went to the doctors, and they confirmed that I was pregnant. Then I ended up in the hospital spotting, and I never really had any kind of issues like that before with any of my other pregnancies. So, you know, they did an ultrasound there, and, you know, you could see the little, like, not tadpole, but, you know, the little baby at like 6-7 weeks, and we could see the heartbeat. I believe we could see it. I know that they showed it to me, so that was all fine and dandy. But when we were at the hospital, they told us that my HCG levels were like triple what they should be, and normally you have high HCG levels when you're having like a twin pregnancy. And or if there's like a major issue with the pregnancy, you can have like super high HCG levels. So that was like really concerning, and they didn't tell me like, you know, the reason for that. They just told me, oh, it only happens in these cases, and that's it. They sent me home and said that, like, obviously the baby's fine, I'm fine. So I got sent home. They were like, oh, your doctor will go over that, you know, the paperwork and all that with you at your next appointment. So I went to my next appointment, and actually I think that was my official first prenatal appointment. And they were like looking at the paper, and they were like, oh, your HCG levels are so high. You know, we only see it in cases where there's twins, or when there's like a really bad birth defect, or the baby is actually a molar pregnancy and it's not a real pregnancy. So he pretty much tried to tell me, he was like, okay, so we can set you up for a DNC if you want for next week. And I was like, oh, like, stop right there. Like, what did you just say? Like, he literally kept trying to push a DNC on me. And that's like, I guess a DNC, it's like dilated and something. Anyways, pretty much they dilate you and they terminate the pregnancy, or they take out the pregnancy. And he was trying to tell me that I didn't have a molar pregnancy. And pretty much what a molar pregnancy is it's not actually a baby. It's like an egg that was fertilized, but with nothing fertilizing it. I guess, I don't know how to quite explain it, but pretty much like it's not a baby. And on the ultrasound, it shows it as being like a mass of cells, like little bubbles almost. And it grows, and it can turn like cancerous and whatnot. Like, it's not a baby. And he tried to tell me that, and I did not believe him at all. Like, I had an ultrasound, I saw it, it did not look like that. And he just kept insisting on me getting a DNC done, and I was like, no, I do not want this to happen. Like, first off, I was in denial that that situation was even one that I was in. Like, that wasn't going to happen. Everything's been so great, you know. I had my open adoptions with the first 2 pregnancies that I had, and now I'm finally trying to have one for myself, and now this is happening to me, and it was just like such an emotional thing. You know, I had already started buying a few things just because I was so excited, and he was pushing it on me, and I was so upset. Like, I was holding back my tears, and I would not look at Mario at all for the rest of the appointment, because I knew if I looked at him I would start crying. So he was just like, I just said, no, like, I'm gonna wait. I want to see what happens. And he was just like, well, you should expect to miscarry within the next week, and when you miscarry, blah, 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 this is going to happen. Give us a call when it happens. So I left there so upset, and I called up my grandmother, and I just told her what had happened, and she was just like, you know, why don't you just let time go, see what happens, and go from there. So that's pretty much what I did. So at my 9-week, I think it was like 9 weeks, I went to my next prenatal appointment. Or 6 weeks I went first, and then I went to 9 weeks, something around there. I know it was my 9-week pregnancy, my 9-week prenatal checkup, that they did another ultrasound there, and they saw like a little baby growing. And I wish I could pull it up. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone to show you guys my ultrasound. They did like one of those roll-away ultrasound machines next to me, and they pulled it up, and they saw the heartbeat, and she had like a 150 something heartbeat, and I believe it was like 150 something, somewhere around there. Like I said, it's been a little while. It's been 2 years, so I don't quite remember every single appointment in that much detail, but I'll have to like share it on here when I edit the video. But you could see it, like the head and like almost like the tail, you know, like you could see a baby in there. And they were just like, oh, well, I don't know how this happened, but everything seems fine, so let's just go from here. We'll see you again in 4 weeks. So I ended up back in the hospital again for a little bit more bleeding, and they had done an ultrasound. They tried to tell me it was a twin molar pregnancy, which means that you have one baby and the other one is a molar pregnancy, like a mass of cells. And usually the mass of cells will take over the baby and pretty much kill it, and then, you know, the likelihood of the baby surviving would have been slim to none. And so then they messed with my head by telling me that. And with my HCG levels being so high, like, they just figured that that's what it was. So I went and got a second opinion, and that's what I was told. So as you can see, like, my emotions are, like, up, down, and then on top of being pregnant, like, my emotions were all over the place. So, anyways, I just ended up, and this is back in Texas, when we lived in Texas. So the doctor's office I was going to, I had state insurance. It was an office where you had to see all different doctors because you didn't know which one was going to be your delivery doctor. There's like 6 or 7 different or 4 or 5 different doctors that I would have to see. And so anyways, I just ended up seeing them every 4 weeks. And at my 19-week anatomy scan, something was not right. They did the ultrasound, and they wouldn't tell me, like, the ultrasound technicians, they can't tell you anything that they see. But I could tell by the look on her face that something was not right. Actually, before the 19-week scan, it was 14 weeks. So let me rewind that back a little bit. At 14 weeks, they did the quad screen, which pretty much is like a risk test, or, you know, it sees your risk. And, you know, your levels, whatnot. A test for, like, Down syndrome, spina bifida, a few other ones, and you can opt out of this testing, but I'm like, why not? Might as well just take the blood from me a little bit and see if, you know, something's going to pop up. So we got back a positive result for spina bifida, which pretty much is, like, an open spot in the spine that it can cause, like, someone to be paralyzed. It can cause, like, so many different issues. So when I saw that diagnosis, I immediately called my grandmother. As you can tell, like, my grandmother's the person I would always call. And let me try to put this down a little bit. So I called her and I told her, I was like, okay, so, we just got told that she has spina bifida. I was like, Nana, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was so upset. I was crying. I was like, you know, and she dealt with a lot of, like, disabled people. So she was like, you know, we can get through this. You can get through this. Just, like, keep praying. And, you know, of course, I trust and believe in everything that she would say to me. And I was just so upset. And pretty much the reason why that came up as positive is because spina bifida, how that comes up positive is through an alpha protein that's in our blood that is only produced when there is an open part of the body in the baby, which releases these proteins into the amniotic fluid and then therefore into my bloodstream, I guess. Something like that, but it has to do with the alpha protein. And pretty much what happened was that I got it back that my numbers for my alpha protein were skyrocket and where they shouldn't be. So we were told, you need to go to a specialist that's like an hour away in Dallas, and you need to get an amniosis, which is pretty much when they stick a needle through your uterus, I believe, and something like that they stick a needle in there and they figure something out using an ultrasound, and they wanted me to get some other testing done, and I was not comfortable with the amniosis at all. Like, the idea of a needle going through my stomach just, like, it made me cringe, and it just made me feel very uncomfortable. And there's, like, a risk with doing that in terms of the pregnancy. Like, you can stress them out, and I know that they have ultrasounds and stuff to watch for the heart rate and all that, but still, it was something that, like, as a mother, you don't ever want to have happen. And so they kept, like, you know, I just made the appointment. The appointment was, like, weeks out anyways, so I could cancel if I wanted to. But I made the appointment, and the appointment would have been after my 19-week marker anyways. So then that's when we went to the 19-week ultrasound. When we went there, like I said, the technician was making a face like something wasn't right. They had to call, you know, the big boss in to look at it. And they didn't tell me. They just said, the doctor will call you. Something isn't right. So I was just like, you know, what now? Like, what could it be now? You know, we were told twin molar pregnancy. We were told molar pregnancy. We were told to expect a miscarriage. We were told this, that. We were pretty much pressured to terminate the pregnancy, which thank God I didn't. So we were told all these different things. I went from like crying to being happy to crying to being happy, like back and forth, back and forth. What could it possibly be next, you know? So I wish I have the ultrasound pictures, but I have a couple, but I don't have the ones from that ultrasound with me right now. I think I have them packed away. I might have to edit them into the video to show you guys. Sorry, I'm still trying to adjust to my whole mouth thing that's going on. But yeah, so I remember leaving, and gosh, like, guys, thinking about it, I was beyond stressed out. I was so upset all the time. And they told me I needed to start, so I got the phone call from the doctor's office, and they said, okay, you need to come in, we need to have a talk about what's going on and what we found on your ultrasound. So we came in, and we went in a separate room, like a little comfort room with the head nurse or whatever, and they had the papers out, and they told us, okay, look, your child has gastroschisis. What gastroschisis is a hole around the abdominal area where most times the intestines are outside of the body. You know, if you're gonna follow through with this pregnancy, which of course I was gonna follow through with this pregnancy. This doctor's office was absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, they were like, you're gonna have to see specialists every week or every couple weeks, and the specialist was literally like almost an hour away from our house. It was about 45 minutes from our house, and they wanted us to go over there often, which I would do anything for her. Anything. Like, I don't care if it's an hour away, I don't care if it's 2 hours away. But so anyways, we said, yes, we're going to keep this pregnancy. Yes, we're going to go through with it. Yes, we're going to go see a specialist. And it was almost like they were annoyed that that's what we were doing, you know? And mind you, we lived in a small town. I mean, it was a good-sized town, but the biggest city was Dallas, and that's an hour and a half away. And, you know, at the time, my car blew up. And Mario didn't have a car, so we were in this position where we didn't even have our own vehicle to be getting to the doctor's office. So we were relying on his family for support to help us get there, and they did. They did help us get there every single time. But when we started going to the appointments, you know, we finally was able to find out that she was going to be a girl at our 21 weeks or 22 weeks. Or maybe even, yeah, I think it was 22 weeks we found out that she was a girl. And at the anatomy scan, we couldn't even find out that she was a girl. Like, that's how serious it was. And they couldn't even see it. And I imagine it's because the intestines, when it's out of the body, it was probably blocking that. So they were unsure whether or not, like, her gender. So at our first specialist appointment, we went in and they immediately told us she was a girl. Mario was so nervous. He was sitting there, he was sweating, like, he was so hot. And, like, hot as in temperature-wise, guys. He was hot as in temperature-wise. He was sweating. And when they said, oh, you're going to have a little girl, he was like, oh boy, now I'm going to have to watch out. Like, it was the funniest thing ever. So we were so happy. We announced immediately as soon as we got home to the family that it was going to be a girl, that she was going to be a girl. And they had told us, they showed it to us exactly, which I took out the ultrasound to show you guys. Or, this one isn't the one from the specialist. This is from the specialist up here in Rhode Island. But they had showed us where her intestines was out, and that pretty much they're going to monitor the dilation of the intestines. That if they get to a certain centimeter or something like that, then they're going to have to automatically send me in for a C-section, cut me, and get her out immediately because she could die. Her risk of being stillborn is so high that we would need to get her out immediately. So so anyways, they told us, like, we'll have to come back every couple weeks. At this point, I wanted to move to where my family was. I needed support emotionally, especially, like, you know, I was always on the phone with my grandmother, and I'm so close to her, my nana, my grandmother, you know, same thing. But I was so close to her, I just wanted to be around her. And on top of it, I knew growing up here that the hospital, the children's hospital around here, the hospitals around here are a lot more up to date on their information, medical wise, on like situations like this, and just in general, the doctors up here are a lot better. So we planned to move up to be with my family, and we wanted to get our own place up there and whatnot, get our car. You know, my grandmother offered to, my Nana, she offered to help us out with things, especially in the situation that we were in, to help us out. So we made plans to move. We moved in January 2016 or January 2017. We moved up here. And we took the plane. I was 28 weeks pregnant. And that week, that first week that I got here, I applied. I went directly to the OB's office, and they had a state worker there who helps deal with insurance. I immediately got insurance so I could start being seen immediately. And I met with the specialist. I had to meet with so many different doctors. I had to meet with a surgeon. I had to meet with a high-risk pregnancy doctor for me. I also had to go to a maternal fetal medicine specialist, which pretty much monitors the pregnancy on like the ultrasound and whatnot, and non-stress tests and all that. And so it became like a weekly thing where like I had so much going on because of the pregnancy, which again, like I was fine with. I was out of work because of it. Oh, excuse me. It's been a long day already. That trampoline park got me today, but so yeah, I started seeing the doctor, and they told me, they were like, look, because I was freaking out. I was like, okay, they're telling me I need to have a C-section, and they're going to schedule me to come in at like 36 weeks, and blah, 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 and they said this, and they said that, and my doctor was like, look, we treat gastroschisis like any other normal pregnancy. We do not induce a pregnancy unless there's something that is going on with the baby that's affecting the baby, then we'll induce. We do not have C-sections because it's absolutely not necessary, and it's more beneficial to the baby to be born vaginally. It helps like push fluid up the lungs and antibodies and all this other stuff. So they were like, I looked like the crazy one over worrying about everything because of what I was being told back in Texas. And in Rhode Island, like, it's very common out in Texas, and it's common out here, but it's seen, from what the doctors have said, gastroschisis babies come in groups. I guess they're all born in groups. Like, they'll have like 4 or 5 at a time, and then they won't have any at all for some time. So anyways, I'd see her surgeon, and she, you know, asked me questions, and then it became like an every week thing. I'd get checked. They'd do the heartbeat, and then I go to maternal fetal medicine every week, and they would do an ultrasound to see which position she was in every week, and to do, I don't know if that was a non-stress, no, not non-stress test. They do a non-stress test too, but they would do a test to see if she's practiced breathing in my stomach, and to see if she would move on the ultrasound. And then they would do a non-stress test, which I'm going to have Mario edit in some pictures to show you guys, you know, throughout the pregnancy, because I took pictures of everything, the non-stress test, everything. So put 2 bands on my stomach. One would measure the heartbeat, and the other one would measure her movement, I believe. And it would have her heart rate on the little machine, and it would show, you know, kind of like, oh, contractions. It would measure contractions, not movement. It would measure contractions and heartbeat, or heart rate. And pretty much they would make sure that she would move a couple times within the 20 minutes. And, you know, see how her heart rate is affected by that. So I went every week to do that, and literally every single week she was perfect. And every single week, the ladies were so used to seeing me, and they were so nice. They would print out different ultrasound pictures, which they're not the best quality, but that's just because it was one of those like pull away ultrasound machines. So here's one. I'm sorry, the light's a little funny. You can see like her eye is right there, her forehead, her nose, and her mouth, and like her cheek. And then, let me see, what is this one? This one right here, that little shape right there, that's her nose, that's her bone nose. And her head is like leaning up against my, what the heck is it called? It begins with a P. I don't know, the thing that gives the baby all the nutrients. I forgot what it's called, but that. And then you can kind of see it. That's her face from the lips up, so like this. So you see her nose right there, and her mouth. She had big lips, and her cheek, eye, cheek. She always had her head laying up against that. Gosh, I don't know what it's called. I couldn't think of it off the top of my head. But, so we go in every week and they do that. And it was just like, so many different doctor's appointments. But like I said, I'd do anything to make sure that everything was okay. Now, if there was a case where she was in distress, and because as the longer she's in my stomach, the amniotic fluid is like acidic, so to speak, so it inflames the intestines that are out and they'll swell up, and you actually start losing a little bit of water towards the end of your pregnancy. So they measure the levels of water or amniotic fluid and whatnot, and you know, anything can really set these babies in distress, the ones with gastroschisis, at any point in time. So that's why it's so important that they're constantly keeping an eye out on the pregnancy and whatnot. So they did a full big, like almost like an anatomy scan again at like 36 weeks. And this is where I got this picture from. 36, yeah, it was, no, maybe 34 35 weeks, because this was in February, February 15th, 2017. So as you see this picture, this is her stomach. This is from like a butt up point of view. So we got her stomach here, all of this, and you can see they have it outlined like in the triangle. All of this out here was her intestines. This is the placenta. That's the word I was looking for, placenta. This is my placenta. This is her stomach, and this is all her intestines out, all right here. So they were constantly measuring it and measuring my fluids and whatnot over time. So I was really happy to get this picture so I could show you guys and not show you guys, but at the time I really wanted this picture just so I could show her, and it's such a good quality picture. So I want to show you guys that. So they did that, and then after 36 weeks, it was a Friday actually, I think I gave birth to her on a Monday. Friday I went into the hospital. I felt like I was leaking fluid. They tested me and they said that it wasn't fluid, and they sent me home. The next day I woke up and I had like little bits of like what looked like mucus coming out, and during your pregnancy it's normal for mucus to be coming out little by little, especially towards the end of your pregnancy, but mucus plug can always regenerate, so it's not something to be concerned about. But in this case, with being pregnant with her, and I was 36 and a half weeks, I was almost 37 weeks, it's important for me to keep an eye out on those things. So I did call my doctor and let him know, and they were like, okay, we'll just come in and check. So they checked me again, and again they told me it's not my water, and they sent me home. So I woke up the next morning, this is the third morning, and everyone went to work. It was a Monday, and yeah, it was on a Monday. Mario went to work, and I woke up and I went to go wipe myself, and sorry guys, this big TMI right here, I was wiping myself, and it was literally like this color, highlighter yellow, mucus coming out of me, and it wasn't just a little bit, it was a lot, like a lot. And it wasn't a normal color. It wasn't like pea yellow. It was like highlighter yellow. It was just something weird. And I called up my doctor and they were like, okay, you need to go in. So I went in and I took my little cousin with me because she was in from Florida at the time. And I was just like, you gotta look out for stuff like this whenever you decide to have kids. And she was like, I'm never doing that. So we were in the room and we were just playing around, whatever. I was expecting to be sent home again for the 3rd time. And they were like, they checked me and they were like, oh, you're still only dilated a little bit, but we do see this yellow. And they want to make sure that it was actually coming from the inside of me, like my cervix. So they brought another specialist in and they opened me up, and sure enough, it was coming out of there. And I don't quite remember if they said that maybe they thought it was odd, the color of the mucus that was coming out. And so they told me that either A, it could be something that has to do with the gastroschisis, or B, she might have used the bathroom in me and it could have caused the mucus to be that weird color, but not, I don't know. I don't think highlighter yellow, it would have been that color. But so anyways, they were like, you're gonna have a baby today, might as well, you know. So I was exactly 37 weeks pregnant. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And Mario was on his way to do a delivery in Boston, and which is about like an hour away. And I called him up and I was like, babe, we're gonna have a baby. You need to get to work immediately. And so he told his coworker that he was riding with, and he called his boss, and they were like, you need to turn around immediately. We are bringing you back. And so they turned around and they drove back down to Providence, and he dropped him off. And the look on Mario's face, he was so nervous. Like, so they had me in the emergency room, and they had me get undressed, and they had, you know, I have a little keepsake box that I keep everything in, a cute little hat box. So they had, let's see, they had this little thing on me, to put around my stomach. But look how cute this is. They had this around my stomach, and they put the little monitors, the contraction monitors in it on my stomach, and this held it to my stomach. And they were like, oh, I'm going to call the specialist and tell them that, you know, you're going to be having a baby today. And so they were like, we're just going to start you on some Pitocin and to get those contractions going, and they were going to induce me and whatnot. So anyways, they get me all ready and they bring me up to my room, and like, I guess with Elena, I switched multiple rooms. Like, I labored in one room, I went to another. With Rosalie, I just stayed in the one room, and I was there. Like, the room I gave birth in, that's the room they kept me in. So I was in there, and they got me all settled in. Mario was in, my Nana got there first. When I told my Nana, she was like, okay, I am leaving work immediately. She drove from the end of Rhode Island to the middle of Rhode Island. She was there like that. And she was there, and she was sitting in the room, and she was just asking me all these questions, and she was so excited, and I was just like, stop asking me questions. I don't want to answer them. I was like, I was so irritated. And, you know, I was in the room, and it was about 1 o'clock when Mario had gotten there, and he was freaking out. Like, he was so nervous, guys. Like, our nurse was like, okay, do you want some of this? Do you want some, you know, do you want some apple juice? Do you want some ice? Blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, yeah. Like, you know, I was on Facebook Live, like, telling the family that we were going to have a baby and just showing everyone the room. They had, like, the whole setup for Rosalie. They had the whole separate room area for her ready, because we were going to have, like, a lot of people in there. We were going to have the NICU team. We were going to have the surgeons. We were going to have the high-risk doctors, the nurses. Like, they gave me the Pitocin, and it was like 4:30 when my contractions got really, really, really bad. They were telling me, like, you know, to stand up, like, that'll make things better. And I would stand up, and it made things a lot, like, it made my contractions a lot harder, like, a lot worse. For me, like, sitting still made them not as hard. So they were, like, trying to give me popsicles and stuff, and I'd say yes, but my contractions were so hard that I couldn't even focus on the popsicle. So they brought in the anesthesiologist, and they went to go put the epidural in me, and Mario wasn't even near me. They wouldn't let him near me. They told him to sit in the chair, like, on the wall and me on the bed, and every single time I get the epidural, it hurts so bad. Like, it hurts so bad to me that with Elena, she was almost 9 pounds, and I just gave birth to her naturally, because when they went to go do it, I was in so much pain. I just didn't want to make it worse. And it seems like every time I get the epidural, they give it to me around the time when I'm having a contraction, and it intensifies the contraction by like 1,000 times. It literally stops my breath, and I just can't do it. So yeah, they gave me the epidural, and I felt better. I felt a lot more relaxed, and I could still feel my insides contracting, but it wasn't as painful on me. So, I don't know, it was like an hour that I had gotten. I got the epidural, I think it was at 9:30. Yeah, I got it at 9:30. 9:30 p.m. on March 21st. And within an hour, the doctor, he was like, I'll come back in an hour and we'll see how you're doing. So he came back in an hour, and he's like, okay, let's just put a catheter in, so that way whenever you're ready, we can have the baby or whatever. So he comes in and, you know, pop open my legs. He checks me, and he's like, oh my god, the head's right there. He's like, we aren't doing no catheter, we're having a baby. Mario jumped up, and Mario was like, right now? We're gonna have a baby right now? And he was like, he rips off his sweater, and the whole back of his shirt is like drenched sweat. He's like freaking out. I could see like the sweat, like shininess coming off his forehead. Oh my god, it was the funniest thing. And at this point, my legs are like widespread. Literally the whole NICU team, like everyone, the surgeons, everyone. I had my legs open, and there were these spotlights on the ceiling, like right on my hoo-ha. And half of Rhode Island was running into my room. And I was just like, oh, hi, everyone. Like, hi. I'm so glad we're all getting to know each other very well. Like, I hope everything looks nice down there. So they walked in, and there was so many people there, guys. Like, I can't even tell you how many people there was. But mind you, at this point, like, I'm kind of out of it. And I'm kind of out of it. So we were talking, and I forgot what they had said. They said, oh my gosh, she has a lot of black hair, she has a lot of hair, and they were like, okay, you ready to push? And Mario was like, not really, he's like, you ready to have a baby? And he's like, oh, not really, or he said something funny. It was something real funny like that. And I laughed so hard, that she flew out of me. Like, I did not even push. I did not push once. Like, she literally flew out of me when I laughed. And mind you, my 2 pregnancies before this, my babies were about like almost 9 pounds, and I only pushed like 4 times with them, and they were out. It seems like once my body's really relaxed, the contractions just happen. And I don't know, with my first 2 babies, I didn't even know I was in labor until I was almost 8 centimeters dilated anyways. So like, my labors seem to happen pretty quickly. Well, my dilation, like, once it gets going, it happens very fast. So she flew out, and obviously there's a bunch of people. They have to immediately take a plastic bag thing and cover the organs, and I can't even tell you what it looked like. All I remember seeing was this tiny little baby. She was only like 5 pounds 6 ounces, and those babies that are born with gastroschisis tend to be smaller than regular babies. I forgot what the correct term is for it, but they tend to be smaller than regular babies. And all I remember seeing her was curled up into like a little C like this. Her head was like right here, and all I saw was these big feet. And she was purple, and her hair was black, and she had a lot of hair. And they took her on that side of the room, all the way in the back, on a bed, and there was people putting oxygen on her, and there was people covering up her organs, and then they put like another bag over her body up to her chest, which if you guys saw my picture on Instagram on my stories, you saw that she had a tube up into her nose, and that they put the bag up to her. She wasn't crying, I don't believe, not that I can remember. So I have like, guys, I don't even remember what her face looked like because I didn't even get to see it. I didn't get to hold her, and but they did put her they put her in an incubator after they got her all settled in, which was real fast. Like, before I was even, like, before the doctor was pushing my placenta out and stuff, she was already in the incubator. And they popped her next to me, and they were like, you want to take a quick look at her before we bring her to the OR? And I was like, yeah, like, and I remember looking at her. She had a wide nose, and she just looked so peaceful, and she was so tiny. I just remember that she looked so tiny. And I still don't really remember much of what she even looked like, just that she was purple and she had black hair and she was really tiny. So they brought her to the OR, which I was in Women and Infants Hospital, and they take her down to the basement and they wheel her underground to the Children's Hospital, which is right next door, and the OR is over there, so operation room. So the pediatric surgeon is over there with her. I got all fixated and cleaned up, and I got brought over to my recovery room, and I couldn't sleep. When I finally got a phone call into my bedroom from the pediatric surgeon, it was, or no, I think I did end up staying, yeah, I stayed in that same room for a while. And then when I finally got the phone call, it was, I think it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, I did not sleep at all because I had no updates on what was going on. I never got to see the baby, nothing. I mean, I saw the baby, but it was so brief, and with everything going on, like, I did not remember it at all. So when I finally got the call, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and she had told me, or actually, right after I gave birth, the surgeon was like, okay, we got some news to tell you. And I was like, okay, what? You know, I already knew what was going on, so it wasn't something that was going to be different. Hold on, guys. I need some water. Oh, I'm talking a lot, so I'm getting thirsty. So she came in the room and she was like, we got to tell you something. We don't know what we're going to do because these babies are usually born with their intestines out. And we usually put the intestines in what's called a silo bag. It almost looks like a plastic bag, and it hangs over their body. It's hung. And, you know, they have these, like, you know, bandages around the hole. And what happens is as the swelling of the intestines go down, it slowly makes its way back into the body. It's a very long process. That's what the plan was originally for Rosalie. But when she was born, the surgeon came back in and just let me know. She was like, look, Rosalie not only had her intestines out, she had her stomach out, her liver, her fallopian tubes, her uterus, her whole female anatomy was out, and stomach, liver, and all that, aside from the intestines, which I have pictures of all that too. Very emotional, because at that point I'm thinking, okay, well, if they can't do that, what are they going to do? You know, they can't just shove everything back in her tiny little stomach, which hasn't had anything in there all this time, you know, especially with everything being inflamed and dilated, you know, from being in the amniotic fluid. So I was freaking out for all those hours. I didn't know what was going on, and I had no update. And here I am in this hospital recovering, not knowing what's going on, and she's over on the other side of the street, you know, and I have no idea what's happening. So I got a phone call, and her surgeon was like, Brittany, everything is done. Rosalie is bandaged up. Everything is back in. And she's in her room waiting for you to see her. And oh my God, guys, like Mario, I don't know how Mario was asleep, but he was asleep. And I was so happy. Like, she told me, she said they didn't have to cut her open. They didn't have to, like, do anything to her body except the way she was able to thread everything back into her body was, like, she had to decompress everything. So, like, the intestines, she had to decompress them to get everything out of them. And then she threaded everything back into the abdominal cavity, which is exactly right on her belly button. And just slowly put everything back in. So she was able to get everything back in, and they didn't sew her shut. They put like this mesh-like stuff over her stomach, so that way her stomach would close slowly and the mesh piece would come off. So she pretty much, like, it closes on her own. So that moment, I remember I still had, like, a robe on. I was already showered and everything. And they wheelchaired me through the elevator to her room. There were 2 NICU floors. And you go into the elevator and it brings you to the outside of the NICU. There's, like, chairs, and you have to be let in through the doors from the front desk. And when I got into the front desk, me and Mario were given these NICU passes, which I wore this every day. I wore it to the store when I left the hospital. I wore it everywhere. It was like a proud thing, you know? So me and Mario both got our own little NICU badges. This one is Mario's. So you can see he got his pass on the 5th. Well, he had his pass for when she was born, but then it expired, so he had to get a new one. So, you know, we had our room number and everything. And as time went on, they gave us little pins, like Proud NICU Dad, Proud Parent of a NICU Miracle. So we had to wear these passes to get in, so we got the passes. And the first time I went in the room, it was dark. We weren't in a room that had a window, so it was dark, and there was like a spotlight that was in the corner. Oh, sorry guys. This is the most I've talked with this new mouth thing I have going on, so it's been a little difficult. But so anyways, hold on a second, guys. But so anyways, we went in the room, and there were wires everywhere, and there was a computer in the spotlight, and there was a breathing machine, and there's so many wires everywhere. There was a couch. The bed that she was in had a heater above it, and you know, every day Mario would just stand there and just watch her, and I would sit there, and I'd have my arm in the bed with her. They had what's called a Rosalies tube going down into her her mouth, into her stomach, and it would pump out everything that was in there, and it was pumping out green. And then there was a breathing tube she had in. They had her on a breathing machine because they put all her organs back into her body. You know, their body cavities, their abdominal cavities are used to not having nothing in it. So when you shove everything in there, it makes it hard for the lungs to breathe. So they just wanted to give her some support, so that way in case something happened, you know, so that way nothing would happen. You know, she would just have complete support, and they would wean her off of the breathing machine, the oxygen machine, to, you know, and see how she does. So within the course of 2 days, she was off the breathing machine, and they took her off the fentanyl to have her wake up and start being more aware. But she still needed the Rosalies tube in for some time. Pretty much, she could not start feeding until that Rosalies would come out clear. Like, the fluids in her stomach would come out clear. When they are green, that means that her stomach isn't ready for her to process food. So by having clear, that means that her body is digesting what's in her stomach. So we had to wait until, you know, it was like that for at least 24 hours or so. It was clear. Once the Rosalies tube was out, once the Rosalies tube was in and the breathing machine was out, was when we could first hold her. And that was about a week after giving birth to her, so that was a very emotional time. You know, throughout the time she was laying in the bed, and they had her arms with tape, because she kept trying to pull out the wires out of her mouth. They had to put like fabric around her arms and pin it to the bed so she wouldn't move it, and like thinking about it makes me so upset, because there was times when she would cry and she had the tubes in her mouth, like, and because the tubes were in her mouth, she couldn't make no noise, and so she was crying, but she couldn't make noise. And so therefore a nurse wouldn't hear her, and nobody could calm her down, and just her heart rate would go up, and then the machine would start beeping that her heart rate was up. And in terms of the breathing machine, they had to put a suction down into the tube to get all the moisture out, and it would like gag her, and I hated seeing it. Like, I hated it so much. I hated seeing her cry and not be able to make noise, and I hated not being able to hold her, to comfort her, and that she was just stuck in this position. And they'd switch up, you know, the sides that she was laying on, but like, it was so emotional. And then on top of, you know, just having a baby, my hormones were all over the place. So it was really upsetting. But, so anyways, over time, it was about a week, we got to hold her for the first time. And your first hold, she was just this little baby, and she was so peaceful. And I felt like I could protect her finally. And Mario, he held her, and she was smiling, and he was smiling, and you know, from there, we got to start feeds, and we started at 5 milliliters a day for 2 days each. The first day we did 5 milliliters every 3 hours, and that is literally like that much. She sucked that down so fast, like so unbelievably fast. She wanted more and she couldn't, and they can only give them little amounts because they don't know how their stomach's going to react to it. So she would be hungry for hours, and we couldn't do anything about it. Not for hours, but, you know, she would be hungry and wanting more, and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So then on the second day, she could go up another 5 milliliters. After the second day, after she tolerated it, then they went up 10 milliliters twice a day, and she had to reach 60 to 65 milliliters holding every 3 hours before she could even be discharged and be able to tolerate it. So it was literally like a waiting game. Every day we had to up the feeds and see how she tolerated it. Now, we got so lucky, like, guys, I'm on a Gastroschisis page, so I get to see people's, you know, how their journeys are for their babies, and there are so many people that have setbacks. There are people that are in there for months on end, where like they do a feed, the baby throws up, they have to start over. Like, if a baby starts throwing up a feed, then they have to go back down to the 5 milliliters and start over. And it's just like, you know, every time you go to feed them, you get nervous that that's going to happen, and then you're going to get set back again. So, but every single time we had a feed with Rosalie, she was just, she would take it and she'd want more. Like, she just didn't want to stop, you know, she just wanted as much as she can get. So it was, it was a long journey in the hospital, but 23 days, on day 23, we got discharged, which was the fastest that the NICU team had ever seen a gastroschisis baby recover. And because, mind you, they have to have the silo bag, you have to wait for that to go in, then they have to close them up, and then they have to start feeds. Well, Rosalie had everything put back in right after birth, and then, you know, she could handle it on her own. And Rosalie was a fighter. She was a fighter. She's very strong, and you could see that in her. And our nurse, Linda, her name was Linda, she was like a mom to us. Like, she would let us know everything that was going on all the time. And of course, you know, you had the team of doctors come around every morning, and the surgeons come around every morning to do an update on her, and you got to be a part of that morning update and how she's doing, and team plan for the day for her. And I was there literally every single day. Of course, like during the weekdays, I had to go home to sleep, because mind you, we lived about 30 to 40 minutes away from the hospital. We were living with my Nana at the time. And then on the weekends, we would spend the night in her room. So Mario would even sleep on the cold floor just for us to stay there. And we would just stay in the room, and there isn't TVs because it's meant for them to be relaxed and to recover. So we would stay in the room, and we would just be on our phones with the headphones all day long. And I'd sit there right next to Rosalie, like how I am now, with my arm in the bed, and just stare at her and just talk to her and sing to her, and I'd hold her, and that was literally my day. Like, I would be on my phone and I'd just hold her all day long. And we did breastfeeding, and of course I was pumping throughout this whole time. So the 3 weeks that she didn't really get, or the 2 weeks that she didn't really get to eat, I pumped a lot. So I had a big back supply in the NICU, so I had to start storing my milk at home. So we did do breastfeeding for a while, but eventually it didn't quite work out with me and her, so we ended up transitioning into formula. And you know, I had a very quick birth with her. I still get upset thinking about how I couldn't have a normal delivery with her, but I am unbelievably blessed and grateful for how well the delivery went, for how fast her recovery was, and we never had any setbacks while in the NICU, and we never had any issues following the NICU. Obviously, we had a few scares, like when she was sick and throwing up. We had to go to the hospital, but that was just a flu. But so, you know, a lot of times I get asked, is there any complications she has now due to the condition that she was born with? There's definitely things that we have to keep an eye out for. Stomach bugs, like throwing up, you know, when she poops, if she's pooping, color of her poop. I've never watched for color of poop so much in my life until I had Rosalie. But so there's a lot of things that we have to still keep an eye out for, but I'm not as paranoid about it now as I was back then. We're just very informed now, and she was seeing a surgeon for up until she was a year old, and she graduated from seeing her surgeon because of how well she was doing and no complications. And I'll have Mario edit up a picture of, or I'll post up a picture of her stomach, but it literally looks like an orange navel. Let me see if I, like, I don't know, not this orange, but it's kind of like bunched up. It kind of looks like the end of a balloon. It's kind of like ridged and bunched up, and it has like a little pinch on the end. Like, her stomach, like, it looks like that had never happened to her. She has like a little cute little belly button, but like you would never think that that happened to her ever. And she hasn't had any problems since then, and we're just unbelievably blessed and grateful to not have any issues following this. And obviously, like I said, there's things we have to keep an eye out for, but Rosalie is very strong-willed. She has a lot of energy. She's very talkative. She's just very strong, and I'm so blessed to have been her, to be her mom, not have been her mom, but to be her mom and be like pretty much chosen to be her mom. You know what I mean? Like, we're just blessed. Obviously, you know, I did believe in my mind that the hardest situations are given to the strongest people, so I kept that in mind the whole time, that I was chosen for a reason to have a baby with this condition, because I am strong-willed also, and I could get through that. So anyways, when we were in the NICU, it was around Easter time. We got discharged before Easter time, so they had cute little stuff on the door like this. Oh, and when we moved to Rhode Island, they allowed us to have like a NICU tour, so we got to see what the NICU looked like. So we got like a little handbook, you know, a bunch of different stuff, room information, oh, she also had hydronephrosis, which is swelling of one of her kidneys, but that corrected itself over time. But, so anyways, yeah. And I kept, like, the parking tickets and everything for all the appointments, and I don't know. It's just, it was such a long journey, and, you know, I always thought to myself about the worst that could happen, and I was just so positive about the situation and so grateful for everything. And obviously with the support from friends and family, definitely helped us get through it. We had like a GoFundMe at the time to help us with finances in terms of driving back and forth, because we drove back and forth 4 times to the hospital for like 40 minutes a day each day, aside from the weekend when we would spend the night there. So it was pretty difficult, but when homecoming came and it was time to bring her home, it was the best feeling in the world. I just wanted to share her with everyone and share her story with everyone, and just, you know, tell people that you can if she can overcome this, then you can overcome it too. Like, you can overcome anything. If she can do this, I felt like there's nothing in the world that anyone else can't do. What possibly could be harder than having your own organs outside of your body? You know what I mean? And to think back if I was still in Texas and that horrible doctor, if I would have terminated this pregnancy, which I never would have anyways, if I would have terminated the pregnancy, I would not have such a strong, beautiful, pain in the butt daughter that I have right now. I wouldn't have, like, it's just amazing when you think back to it. You know, I don't know. It's just amazing. Her story is truly amazing. So, that's her story, guys. That's her story. Sorry that it was an hour long, but I really want you all to understand from beginning to end. This is why we ended up in Rhode Island. This is her case, and this is how amazing she's doing now. And last year for her first birthday, I did a video collage. This year I'm doing an actual video talking about her birthday, so talking about her birth story and whatnot. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry that it was really long. If you want research on gastroschisis, you can head over to Avery's Angels on Facebook. You can get all information on there about gastroschisis, and you can actually talk to other parents that have it. If you or anyone you know is having a baby with gastroschisis and you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram. My Instagram account is Brit_Pope. And I am always open to talk about anything, or you can comment below and let me know, or ask me questions there, and I'll always get back to everyone. So thank you for watching, everyone. Bye.